Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Kev Baker, and we are back for another week of live shows right here on the Kev Baker Show. And as you can see, today I'm not myself. No, I have been joined by my good friend, Mr. Scotty Lopez. Scotty, how you doing, my good man?
I am doing absolutely fantastic, and it is great to be back on KBS.
It's been a little while, Scott, right? Because we've got so many different kind of brands and hybrids of the Kev Baker Show and Freaky Friday and weekends, and so it's nice to have you back here for the main event. Because of course TFR Live, the home of the Kev Baker Show. Big shout out to everyone listening on TFR Live today. Of course, we're going out on iHeartRadio, TalkStream Live, TuneIn radio apps, couple of terrestrial stations here and there, and of course we're also simulcasting over at YouTube. And today was one of those days when I was looking at the news and I was thinking, what am I going to talk about today? And I took a look at the computer, wasn't happening. Had to step away. Gut feeling, no, let it sit, Kev. There's going to be something you come across later on. So I went away, pottered about, came back again. And as you do, you know very well, Scott, that I am still a very, very ardent supporter of InfoWars. Rightly or wrongly, people will criticise me for listening to that. Even now, when I tend to find myself disagreeing with a lot of the content more than I ever used to, but I still listen. And today it got really interesting. And as things were unfolding on the show, it was talking about events that had occurred over the weekend that I had absolutely no idea about. I was oblivious to. So I'm listening to this, and I'm listening to Jones talking about secret insiders and White House sources, and then he's got one of his roving reporters, I'm not sure if you know her, Scott, Millie Weaver. Young, kind of blonde-haired thing, goes out on the street, does some really good reports when she gets in about the woke brigade and stuff. Well, she's coming on as well, and she's talking about these White House insiders that are getting in touch with her, and unnamed sources and faceless officials. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? Am I listening to Jones or am I listening to AJ and on? And what they were talking about was the fact that over the weekend, their sources, and I say sources as in I can't confirm who these sources are, where these sources are, what these sources are, but their sources are saying that there may have been another attempt on the life of the President Donald Trump, this time to do with poisoning. Now, long story short, Scott, and we'll take a look at some of the headlines in a moment, but this is all unfolding. I'm listening to this, and they're explaining how over the weekend, obviously Trump, along with probably every other official or politician or billionaire out there, as a food tester. It's a no-brainer, right? Obviously for assassination attempts, things like that. Sounds like something from the Middle Ages, doesn't it? You get the king, you bring in some jester to taste the food. I know it sounds ridiculous, but go with me because this food taster apparently, allegedly, had a really bad reaction to whatever it was that was going on. So there was a motorcade rushed to the hospital in Washington, unannounced, unplanned, no scheduled appointments. It did look to me like the Secret Service were kind of running about, but they do run about. They rush about. It's not planned. It's kind of off the cuff. So, yeah, a bit of action going on. But according to these sources and AJ and on, it would appear that they were very worried in case Donald Trump has been the victim or some attempted poisoning fiasco, or as I'm calling it, Scott, Poisongate, because everything's a gate these days, right? So, listen, man, I don't know, but when this was all going on, I'm thinking, it's going to be hard to kind of talk about this myself. This is the kind of thing you need a conversation, and especially with you being over there, and you keep your eye on Trump more than I do, Scott. So, from what I'm telling you, from this little bit of kind of all over the place update on what's going on, what's your take on what I've seen playing out here today and what may be playing out in the US right now?
I mean, first of all, it wouldn't surprise me, honestly, to tell you the truth. Like, he really does have a lot of enemies. You know what I mean? And I mean, I know there's a lot of talk about, the deep state, and all that stuff. But
But there is
he,
there is a permanent government there, though. You know,
yeah,
there is a kind of apparatus there. I laugh sometimes with the hashtag deep state because that term's kind of lost its power because it was hijacked by movements and,
yeah,
you know?
that exactly that term was sort of turned into a joke in a way, right? Or you know what I mean? It was that 17th letter of the alphabet that really tainted that term, tainted that word, tainted that, tainted that. Uh, but that's what we've been calling the shadow government. It's the same thing.
David Icke over here calls it the permanent government. The ones you don't vote for, they're the ones that are there no matter what colour of administration are in power, right? So, and it's true. That's the good way of looking at it.
Exactly. And so instead of calling it the deep state, I'm just going to call it like I always called it before, like we called it back in the day. I'm just going to call it the shadow government. Uh, but there are people out there who do not like Trump, right? And the thing is that I look at it in terms of let's look at it like let's take it low level. Let's look at it on a more micro scale. Let's look at it in terms of street gangs. Okay. You got your Republicans, which are the Bloods, and the Democrats, which are the Crips, right?
Yep.
And they're two criminal gangs that they're jockeying for power, and they're maybe sometimes in behind the scenes, maybe the leaders are actually forming pacts with each other and whatever, and all of a sudden, hey, there's a new gang. There's a new gang leader that wants to come in and that's how I look at Trump, right? I look at him as he wants to set up his own dynasty, right? You had your Clinton dynasty, you had your Bush dynasty. Well, Trump wants to set up the Trump dynasty. He wants to kind of solidify his own political philosophy, his own um, sort of empire, I guess you could say. And that's why you have so many people on actually both sides that don't like him, at least as far as the Clinton cabal, the Bush cabal, your old guard neocon Republicans, the quote unquote never Trumpers, right? He's a new guy on the block that's trying to establish dominance. And so he has everybody against him. It would be like if you had a rival gang come in, for example, like Latin Kings or MS-13 or something, deciding that they're going to come into this area that was controlled by the Bloods and the Crips, that they had been fighting over this territory for a long time, and now you have this third gang that just kind of flies out of nowhere, and now all of a sudden, oh look, maybe the Bloods and the Crips are starting to form a little bit of an alliance because there's this kind of third party that's challenging both of them. So that's how I look at it. I just look at Trump being just this guy that's on the outside, trying to establish his own little dynasty out there. And
when I used to look at this kind of thing, Scott, back in the day when we first started all of this would be the kind of topics that we would get into all of the time, right? It was like pre-Obama, Bush was still there kicking about, and we would always talk about these things and talk of the Illuminati and, the shadow governments and everything else would come up. And I must admit, I always used to have conversations with Johnny Whistles and Marty, one of our really early co-hosts we had on the show. And sometimes we would kind of look at it, just like you've described it there, almost like different factions. All of them, working towards the same agenda in the end of the day, sort of, but different flavors to it, different paths to get you to that place, i.e., one would take you to the goal wherever they were taking us down a socialist road. The other ones would take us in another direction. But in the end of the day, all roads would kind of still come back to where they want to take us, right? And over time, the flavors would change. You would have the changing of the guard, keep the people happy. You get rid of the Labour over here, or the Tories, and the Democrats, or the Republicans in your country. And it keeps things fresh, and it keeps people thinking that things are changing. But in the end of the day, it's still going on. Now, like you say here, here's Trump. And you know me, I've kind of always sat on the fence. I don't trust any of them. You know that, Scott. And I'm not going to sit here now and tell people to start trusting politicians. But I have to admit that all of the evidence that if you were to lay it on the table, the media going after him, the politicians all around him going after him, just everything seems like, and I get that a lot of stuff's theatre, but it still seems like he could be one of these new rising factions, for lack of a better term, to fit into our story here. A new clan, a new tribe, somebody that sees the power, likes the power as well, by the way. Let's make no mistakes about this. Exactly. But he's wanting to change it a little bit. Is that where he is such the threat?
Yes. I think you summed that up quite well. Like, what's the only difference between the Bloods and the Crips? Well, the colors they wear, right? But they pretty much operate the same way. It's all the same gang code, G code or whatever. And then it would just be like another gang coming in. They got the same G code. They're still operating this. They're still gangsters or whatever, but they're just challenging the other two. And that's what I think Trump is trying to do. He's trying to establish his own dynasty. He wants to set up a dynasty to where once he serves his term, Trump Jr. will be able to take over, just like when Daddy Bush was president, then you had, George W. take over, right? He wants to set up this thing to where his family can, his prodigy will be able to run for president. He'll have Don Jr. end up taking over at some point and making a run for it. And it's no different than the Bush clan, than the Clinton clan. It's just he's another clan. He's just another clan that has come in, and it's not saying he's good or anything. That's like I said, that
nobody's perfect, brother. Nobody's perfect. You show me somebody perfect, I'll show you a liar.
No. Like I said, it's like I said, it would be like the Bloods and the Crips have controlled this one area for so long, and then all of a sudden you have MS-13 come in. It doesn't mean MS-13 is good by any means. It's just they're another rival faction that is wanting to take over. And so I think that's what's going on here, and that's why there's he has so many enemies, because he's got enemies on all sides, basically, from the left and the right. Really,
and probably factions that we don't know about. And let's take a look at some of the headlines, for the listeners out there. I've got a funny feeling a lot of people won't actually know what's happened over the weekend, because I certainly was oblivious to all of this. And we'll go for the mainstream. What the mainstream are saying are The Guardian. Trump says he's in very good health, and that's a quote, very good health after unscheduled medical trip. White House says the president took advantage of a free weekend to begin portions of his routine checkup. Now, again, I can only take that at face value. Then we come over here to The Independent, and it says Trump makes unscheduled hospital visit for 2 hours, quote, medical checkup. President began annual physical 3 months early ahead of very busy 2020. So obviously reading from the same White House statement, Scotty, right? And yet at the same time, we've got these mixed signals coming out over at InfoWars. And you know me, Scott. You know I'm not somebody that typically sits and goes after Jonesy or criticizes him in any way. But like I say, today, it was very much akin. If I closed my eyes, it was like listening to AJ and On, unnamed sources, all of this hype, all of this action. Mike Adams coming on, the health ranger, to tell you how they would slip some CRISPR into his food and drug him and kill him that way. Yet Donald Trump, one of the most public men in the world, and he ain't shy. He ain't shy when it comes to getting a microphone in front of his face or a mobile device with Twitter in his hands. Wouldn't he be the kind of guy to say, look at this swamp, they're trying to take me out?
Yeah, you would think if something like that happened, that Trump would probably tweet about that. I would assume that
What
would
purpose
be
does it serve to keep it secret, Scott? I mean, it would do him more good, I think, to get that out in the open and expose them once and for all, right?
Or would they say, oh, look, he's being crazy trying to claim that somebody tried to poison him?
That's what Jonesy's saying. They're going to go for, is it the 25th Amendment? He's mentally unstable, something like that?
I mean, it's plausible. I mean, they could do something like, say something like that, right? If he were to tweet something like that out. So I don't know. It's tough with stuff like this. And I mean,
and of course, we're entering crazy time. We're entering election cycle time, right?
Yeah, we are. And as far as, Jones goes, I mean, for as long as I can remember, Jones has always had quote unquote insiders.
Yeah. And like I said to you, Scott, I get that. And I used to love all that. But today it just felt maybe a little different. Now, admittedly, maybe it's because I've somewhat been conditioned to these nameless, faceless sources that you hear about on YouTube all the time. And I'm just reacting negatively because of that. Totally open to it.
Yeah. Say maybe that 17th letter of the alphabet kind of ruined that for you. And now what if there really is an unnamed source?
You see, even with the unnamed sources, Scott, with the shadow government being so like vast, and you don't know who the hell's a snake around you at this point. It's hard to work out, right? Even the info that he's getting fed, he could be getting fed a line to put out to make Trump look stupid.
And I think that that's happened before with Jones. Definitely has happened before with Jones. He's gotten baited into pushing certain things that ended up biting him in the ass later on.
And listen, folks, if somebody that I could confirm was in and around Boris Johnson or one of these political cats in London, and they reached out to me, all kind of deep throat and secretive, and dang, dude, my eyes would light up like a little budding Pulitzer Prize winner, Scott. I'd be thinking, right, I've confirmed he's real, and I'd go with it. It would be so easy to be caught up in that innocently.
Exactly, and that's the thing. That's when it's hard to discern, is it legit or is it not? Because we know that there are real whistleblowers out there. There are real people that want to expose things, but they want to remain anonymous for, very legit reasons, right? Because their life, their safety, you've had people contact WikiLeaks, and we know that a lot of the stuff that they have exposed, involving people getting a hold of them.
Scott, if you wonder why I'm laughing, it's because my cat is like telling me and Anna a story in her sleep. So if you hear any strange noises in the background, folks, the cat hasn't been hurt in any way. I've no idea what she's dreaming about. Maybe it's some unnamed pussy source telling her, hey, Dad's got it all wrong tonight. I mean, Trump's definitely in trouble here. That's what it is, dude. The cat whisperer. I know what's going on.
Maybe. So yeah, like I said, it's hard to tell, because how do you know if a whistleblower or if a source that wants to remain anonymous or whatever is feeding you disinfo or if it's actually somebody on the inside that wants to expose something, you know?
And when you get into that level of things, there's so many psyops and people trying to like use you and abuse you, and so many moving wheels. Dude, how do you even keep up with what's going on? You bet it's going to be hard to verify, or for Jones in this case. Again, I'm speaking up for him. And again, listen, he could be absolutely right here. He could be absolutely right. And I tell you why. I tell you what did make sense to me. He says, you know, in recent times, like just very recently, you've started to see some of the more vocal opponents of Trump saying maybe we need to back off a little bit. You know, almost as if they're setting up the distancing themselves from the previous calls to take him out and get rid of him and everything else. So almost like, and again, it's speculation, Scott, almost like an air of plausible deniability by calling off the attack dog so hard. But then at the same time, you've got all of these phony impeachment things going on, right? Never a dull moment in Washington, dude.
And I thought I had seen something. I don't know if this is legit, if it actually happened or not. You might look it up, but I just seen it, you know, going through my feed, and I had heard that Hillary's plane had to do an emergency turnaround on the runway and go back to the terminal because it was violently shaking or vibrating on the runway, and there was smoke coming from it. I don't know if that was legit or not. I didn't get a chance to read it or anything.
It doesn't look like it.
Doesn't look like it.
But I tell you what, one of the headlines that did pop up there was quite cool. Snakes on a plane. Bill Clinton's tarmac meeting with Loretta Lynch. And he's going to be coming up in the conversation later on. We're going to be talking about lots of snakes on lots of the, not Loretta, but the Lolita Express. Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Now then, before we go to the break, Scott, one thing I think it would be fair to bring up at this point was a strange story that broke over in my homeland here in Scotland, and yet still very, very important when it comes to what we're talking about tonight. I think, anyway, it at least needs put on our virtual crime board, Scott. I don't know if we're putting a string between this and what's happening yet, but it's there. It's a dot. And what I'm talking about is, folks, back last year, and let's see the date here. It's July 2018, Wednesday the 18th. US Secret Service agent dies after a stroke during Trump's trip to Scotland. Now, I remember talking about this at the time, and it says agent was working on the presidential protection detail during Trump's stay at the Turnberry Golf Resort. And by all accounts, from what I could make out, he was a fit guy, clean bill of health, and then in his 40s, dropped dead of a stroke.
Are you... okay, here we go. Was he a taste tester?
This is what we don't know, right? And then even Jonesy today was talking about how again, people around Trump have been telling him on the QT, he's even worried about the Diet Coke that he drinks. He says there's days that he feels sluggish. He doesn't drink alcohol, yet he feels like he's like slurring his words. And I must admit, sometimes when I've seen him making speeches, he's not the same Trump that we've seen during the whole kind of campaign thing. And I get it. Damn, the riggers have been in that office, bro. That would age Peter Pan. Do you know what I mean? But there's just sometimes, yeah, for his age, exactly.
Age, and well, you know, for his age, the amount of work he's doing, and but he definitely has a lot more energy than people younger than him. I'll say that. I don't think I could go through the rigors of doing rallies like that and just on a constant basis and dealing with the stress of actually being the president of the United States and
hanging about with all those criminals in Congress and Senate, dude.
Yeah, dude. No.
And having your finger on the nuclear football, that must be so tempting. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're on the
Guys.
break, folks. We'll be back after 3 short minutes. Don't go anywhere. There we go, ladies and gentlemen, and you great people out at YouTube. Yes, indeed. I see Susie in there, Tanya, Lee. Who else we got? Lisa. Big shout out to Lisa. And Nana. Nana as well. Nana's at the gym. I'm feeling tired even thinking about that. We got Mama Shy Bull, Harry Young, the captain. The captain is in there, Scott. I feel more safe now. We've got Jimbo Mac, Guffetta. Oh, that's a different name. Yeah. Oh, scrolling on up here. Queen Goddess, Jimbo, R-Top, Ken Rotman. Yep. Susie. Oh, absolutely fantastic. All the same old suspects, Scott. You ever notice that? No, we love you here, folks. We really do. I like the fact that we get used to the people in the chat room. Matthew as well. Austin. Yes, I see you sneaking in there, guys. Yeah, I like it. And folks, I know in recent times, this kind of topics, it's not exactly what you tune into Kev Baker for, per se. But you know me, I go here, there, and everywhere. And when I hear a story like this rumbling about today, and then I'm able to strong arm and bully Scott into coming and sitting with me for 2 hours to talk about it, I definitely think we need to come down this road, Scott. And for people who don't know, I've been really, really selfish today because, Scott, what time have you been up since?
I woke up at around 5 in the morning.
And what time is it now?
It's 4:30 p.m. over here. So.
And you've been gaming like a dog?
Yeah, I was engaged in a little bit of gaming this morning.
Nice.
You know, sleep pattern got thrown out of whack. And so I figured, well, I'll just get up and fire up the old first-person shooter.
Indeed. Well, when we come back from the break, we'll get a little bit more. We'll see what some of the other news. We'll take a look at some of the other alternative sites, see if they're saying anything about this. And then we'll be getting into Prince Andrew and his terrible loss of memory. It just seems like he can't remember anything at all these days. It's not like he can remember not doing things either. It's just can't recollect. I do not recount. Can't recall that. It almost sounds like somebody's primed him with legalese for when he does eventually get hauled in front of a court. And let me just first of all state though, Scott, here's the thing. And sometimes I make this error myself. In reality, when it comes to the famous photo and the incident with Miss Guthrie, there actually is no law. I know, there's no law that he's broken in the UK. So long as he wasn't knowing that she was sex trafficked, that then with her being over the age of consent, etc. I know, Scott, it makes my blood boil.
No, I know. I exactly see where you're, I know, I get what you're saying. There's nothing in those photos that suggest anything illegal took place, unfortunately. But, it's
the bigger can of worms that he sits atop of. And I had to laugh when his PR agent resigned in light of the most shambolic interview ever given to BBC. Yes, the BBC, Imagine them running to the palace to do some kind of damage kind of cover-up. Oh, but it went horribly wrong. So horribly wrong. And we'll come back and we'll discuss that and lots more. I've got woo for all of you too. We've got phones. It's all going on here on KBS. Remember to hit like, hit share, and let's blow this channel up. Let's take this to the next level. And I know people are desperate to hear about that scumbag Andrew. Unbelievable. Yes, indeed. There's the music. That means we're back. We're live. And I want to thank each and every one of you, wherever you are, whenever you are, for tuning in to today's Kev Baker Show right here on KBS Live on TFRlive.com. And of course, don't forget, coming up right after today, we've got Dr. Brooks Agnew and Lucky with their show, Quantum Connections. So please, please, please make sure you stay tuned for that. I'll be back tomorrow, God willing, with a safe space in the afternoon on YouTube. I took today off because the weekend was just absolutely cray-cray. And then with all of that going on today, that's my excuse anyway, Scott. I was saving it all for tonight because, you know, some of the topics we're going to get into tonight, my blood tends to boil. We were watching George Galloway the other day, right? I was introducing you to, like, the proper King of Scotland. If there was, like, a King of Scotland, I want George Galloway.
I am totally down for George to be the leader of Scotland and to lead you guys to complete independence. And
dude, I think if George Galloway was in charge of Scotland, and I think we would end up like one of these rich Middle East oil states. I really do.
Probably.
Yeah. We could get control of our oil back. Oh.
I'm glad you introduced me to George Galloway because I've never really, I've never really heard of him until you told me about him, and then I went and started listening to a lot of the stuff he talked about. I'm like, he's one of us.
He's been on InfoWars a few times as well. Absolutely one of us. Yep.
Yeah, and so awesome. Once again, Scotland has produced another excellent.
Will I try to manipulate the 6 degrees of separation? I'm 1 degree of separation from him, dude. I've got somebody that knows him very well that I've had on the show that I'm sure if I asked, they would make the introduction. It would keep the Russian flavour to the show going as well, with George having his own Russia Today show. I'll phone the handlers tomorrow, Scott. I'll get it on, man.
We all know that 1 degree of separation is your handler in Moscow, right?
In this case, it might be not a handler, but at least somebody that works for Moscow. And I'm not even making that up. That's Lee Stranahan. He works for Sputnik. That's as close as working for Moscow, right?
Okay, yeah. There we go. But no, I think it would be absolutely awesome if you could get George Galloway on the show.
Like the two forces from Scotland collide.
Oh my God.
Things will never be the same again.
It blows people's minds enough just having your accent on there, but then having dual accents.
George Galloway, I think, has to be one of the best spoken, most educated, eloquent, articulate speakers and debaters in the world. And that's why very rarely do you find anyone taking up his challenges to debate him, because he eviscerates them with intelligence, big words, and just like us, common sense, dude. Truth.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, there's really nothing else I could add to that.
No, you're right. But we need to get George. Yes, that's it. George for global leader. But no, let's go back to Trump for a moment, Scotty. Impeachment stuff. Whole heap of theater.
Oh, I'm so tired of this impeachment crap.
And this is why I want to speak to you about it. Not you personally, but you're like my gauge for the American people, dude. I mean, what are people saying about this?
People are so sick of it, man. Like, really. But now you even have a lot of people who are, I guess, who would identify as Democrats. They're sick of it. This whole thing was based off of like, he said that she heard that they heard that maybe somebody heard something about someone that might have heard something. It's ridiculous. What's that? What's that song? Was REO Speedwagon? Heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who heard it from another. You've been messing around. That's exactly what they're basing all of this off of. Is
like a really weird kind of version of like Washington whispers instead of Chinese whispers, right?
It's so
Ukrainian
stupid.
Whispers. I mean, I've seen one guy, I think he was on the panel, Scott, a grey-haired guy. I don't know who he is, but I loved him. Because he was just basically looking at one of their star witnesses going, so, hang on a minute, you're like meant to be their star witness. You weren't even there. Go on, give it to him. And then you've got that guy, looks like a human sperm, that Adam Schiff dude. Go and check the shape of his head. He looks like a sperm. And what a dude he is, man.
Look up Franklin, the cartoon Franklin the Turtle. That's who Adam Schiff looks like, and you're gonna laugh your ass off whenever you see Franklin because he literally his face looks like Franklin.
Images.
And
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
if you're to compare the two,
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. He's always got that kind of shocked look on his face. It looks like somebody's painted his eyebrows on.
Oh my god, yeah. Lately, I've been calling Schiff Franklin, but dude, he's so ridiculous. Yeah, and the guy that you was talking about that was grilling the star witness. That was Jim Jordan. He's awesome.
Is he a good guy then? Because he seems it. I thought to myself, I could watch him. He looks cool.
Yeah, Jim Jordan, Nunez, those two dudes are solid in my book, So, yeah, this is ridiculous. I think there was even another guy that asked them, the star witnesses. He said, "Hey, name one impeachable offense, just one. That's what you're here for." And they just sat there and didn't say anything. He's like, "Isn't that what you're here for? We're here for impeachment. So, name me one impeachable offense that the president committed." It was just like silence. You hear crickets chirping. I mean, it's such a circus, dude. It's such a waste of time. It's a waste of taxpayer money.
Scott, are they trying to make American politics look so ridiculous from the outside looking in that there's a case to kind of just come up with something entirely new? Because it just seems like it gets so, and especially under Trump, and I don't blame him, but it's just since he's gone in, it's just like it's ridiculous, followed by something more ludicrous, followed by something less believable. Russia gates, PP gates, poison gates. Now, whether we know that's right or not. And one last thing about the whole poison thing, and this is like very outside for me, but of course we've had the Roger Stone trial, right? Jonesy tight with Roger very tight with Trump. Is it a warning from the shadow government not to pardon Mr. Stone?
Yeah.
I know. I sound like I should be on the Patriot soapbox right now. It makes my skin crawl to talk this way, dude. All these faceless characters and unnamed sources and.
Well, see, that's the thing, man. Is that a lot of the stuff that they talk about, right? That they reference, and a lot of the things that 17th letter of the alphabet likes to leverage and utilize, it's stuff that's actually happening, right? It's stuff that, that's the thing. They interweave their deception with truth, with stuff that's actually occurring, right? That way, whenever you talk about it, it's that reaction that you just gave. You're like, "Oh, I don't want to sound like them," but it's actually something that's happening.
But
It's actually, yeah, you know what I mean? So it that's the issue. That's the problem. That's why the PSYOP works so well. That's why the disinfo works so well, because what's the most convincing way to get a lie across to people is there has to be a grain of truth in it, right?
I would say there's probably, I heard somebody saying this before, so I'm stealing it, but the best way to get the lies in is tell as much truth as you can, up to 99% truth, just to solidify and hide that one grain that you're putting in there that changes the tone of everything,
Exactly. So, we're talking about stuff that actually happens, but then, you have that 17th letter of the alphabet and all of that crew. They throw in that little twist in there, that little thing in there that just kind of flips the narrative and changes the direction. And so that's why, like you said, that's why you're like, "Oh, I don't want to sound like them," but
if it's true,
it's true, So,
yeah.
And like I said, this impeachment this whole impeachment circus, this whole ridiculousness, it goes back to the thing, like I was saying, it's just that he's a new gang lord on the block, right? And you got one gang that's finally, maybe, I would say the Republicans, right? He's kind of taken that party over. He's turning it into uh
Well, I would say he's taken that, or he's attempting to do with the Republicans what the Clintons done over their tenure in the
yeah,
Democrats.
yes, he's wanting to co-opt them and get them behind him. He's like, look, hey, I'm the new guy on the block. uh the old boss is gone. Old Bush is gone. We're not doing the neocon thing anymore. We're gonna do the Trump thing now. Whatever Trump's philosophy on how he wants to shape America and the world, right? That's
And
he
here's the
has
thing,
his
from the outside looking in, and this is why my mum loves him as well, I think. And a lot of people, whether you love him or hate him, he's very typically American. He's bold, he's brash, he says it how it is, he's patriotic, which is something I've always kind of associated with Americans. He wears his heart on his sleeve that way. And in recent times, especially compared to the long-legged Mac Daddy, who is like the personification of a soy president, I mean, it's refreshing to have somebody that actually seems American in there. And again, I get it. He's working to his own ends. There's lots going on behind the scenes you don't see, and I'm not telling anyone to vote for him because I don't vote for anyone myself. I don't lean either way because I tend to look at it more like Ike. I look at the fact that these people are here today, gone tomorrow, and as well-intentioned as they may be, then it's still going to be new faces coming in. But Trump's different because Trump's self-made. And Trump's got that money machine behind him because it's his own money machine, you know?
That's what I'm saying. So he's just this outside player who has come in, and the two gangs were like, "Oh, well, what's his deal? What is he going to do?" And he's like, "Hey, I've got my own agenda here. I've got my own thing that I'm going to do, and I'm going to set up my own little dynasty here." And now it's kind of gotten to the point to where all of the Republican Party, the mainstream Republican Party is like, okay, well, I guess you're gonna just we'll merge with you, or you're the one that's gonna be the leader of the gang now, I guess. And then you got the Democrats, which are still being led by the Clinton cabal, right? The Clinton dynasty.
She was over
really
here recently, man. Oh, I seen her broomstick flying around, and she even refused to rule out. She refused to rule herself out because she was saying on, again, BBC, how they seemingly like cozy up to the cabal. They gave her a very pleasant interview. No grilling at all for Hillary, but no. She says there's a lot of people right now putting a lot of pressure on her, Scotty. Yeah, I imagine, to run again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And you see how personal it is between Clinton, between Hillary and Trump. Like you can tell, like it is a very, very personal beef between the two. And
but there's one of my criticisms of Trump as well then. And I get it during the campaign. Bloody awesome. Probably got him elected to say Hillary for prison, stuff like that. Then you get in there and I get it. You realise the kind of depth and the strength of the permanent government, the system, the fact that you're basically having to go to like people working in the Justice Department that are still loyal to the swamp, so to speak. I get that. However, Scott, he's not fought back against any of the online censorship that seems to be aimed mainly at his base. He's not come out and gone after the swamp. Well, I can see anyway, apart from the odd tweet here and there. I seen a White House video the other day about the swamp. The swamp's still here. It was like a 1 minute kind of promotional White House thing about the swamp, impeaching him and things like that. I just think there's more he could do, surely, as a president. And as Obama says, or as he used to say, I've got a phone and a pen, I can do what I want, right? He's got executive orders. He could get stuff done.
Here's my theory on this. Here's my kind of thoughts on what I think is going to happen. It might not, but this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking he's waiting till his second term before he starts dropping the hammer and doing a lot of these things.
Well, that would be the
as far
no-brainer, right? Because if you go too early, you're going to get cut off at 4 years, and you ain't going to get that second term anyway. So I totally get that.
Yeah. And so once he's in his second term, if he gets his second term, and all indications are, I'm pretty confident he's going to get a second term, especially if the Democrats keep up with this whole circus, this whole thing of impeachment, and just because their own constituents are getting tired of it. They're like, why are you focusing on on impeachment when you could be passing laws and trying to actually passing legislation,
like doing
or
your job, just doing your job for the country.
Yeah, doing your job and actually trying to help the American people in some way whatsoever. But no, I mean, they're obsessed with Orange Man bad, and it's really, people are really starting to get tired of it. They really are. And I think a lot of more moderate Democrats and independent, people who are independent, they're just gonna abandon them, and they're gonna vote for Trump probably. I know a lot of people in the African American community are really tired of it too. I mean, you've seen that whole movement, right? The walk away movement, and all of that stuff. Because the African American community feels abandoned by the Democratic Party, and that the African American community was a major voting bloc, one of the main voting blocks for the Democrat Party. And now what the Democrats are pretty much all focused on open borders and giving benefits and, welfare.
Helping anyone that isn't American.
Yeah, helping, basically illegal immigrants. And you have all of these impoverished African Americans in ghettos, in the inner cities going, well, what about us? Well, how are you helping us?
And they're still waiting for their Obama phone, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so I think you're gonna, I honestly think you're gonna see a lot of African Americans, more than they more than what people think, are gonna go and vote for Trump.
And Scott, look at the clown show that. I mean, I don't take sides, right? You know that. I'll call both of them clown shows. But that lineup of Democrats and things that they had at the kind of, is it debates? Or it was hard to work out. What the hell was going on there, dude? That was the weirdest bunch of people I've ever clapped eyes on. And at this point, I could run against one of them and probably win. They're ridiculous.
It just shows how fragmented and how fragmented the Democrat Party is, and that they really don't have a message. I mean, you have
they've got lots of sound bites and virtue signaling statements and rallying the troops with the buzz terms, but no substance.
It's all who could be more radical than the other person, right? And who could one up each other on being woke. Basically, is their platform. Oh, you're not woke enough. Look how woke I am, and they're just trying to one up each other, in that whole thing. And it's this being woke and Orange Man bad is their platform, and they're completely out of touch with the average American, right? With your average working class American who's like, this is ridiculous. This is a total freak show. This is a total clown show. And you still have people jumping into the race. I think Bloomberg wants to jump in now, and then you have this other guy that
has The Rock throwing his hat in yet, man. I've always fancied The Rock as the next president. We might as well just go full Hollywood with it, dude. At this point.
If The Rock throws his hat in, I mean, that's probably going to be even closer to Camacho, right, from Idiocracy.
And he's one of the most popular dudes in the world. Who doesn't love Big Dwayne? You know what I mean?
You know what? I'm declaring it right now. We just need Big Terry Crews to go ahead and throw his
Can you imagine,
throw
not
his
even
hat.
just as like a joke candidacy? That would confirm, it would solidify idiocracy
Yes,
IRL.
so we could legit have Camacho come out, you know. But yeah, I really don't think I don't think they're gonna win. I really don't. I think Trump's gonna get a second term, um,
I think so.
unless they do something so scandalous and shady, like.
Scott, they're still
But
trying
I
to
don't.
push Russiagate in this country. They don't realise that people in Britain kind of know that was that finished a while ago. But then again, you still hear some of the Americans talking about Russiagate. And you're that went nowhere.
Yeah, and then this whole thing that they're trying to say, with the quid pro quo, the phone call to the Ukraine, and he was wanting to put pressure, wanting them to investigate Biden, or he was going to hold the funds to the Ukraine and all that stuff. Like I said, it's all hearsay. You actually had this was one of the most ridiculous things I ever heard. You had a Democrat at the those impeachment hearings. He legit said with a straight face, he said, well, so sometimes hearsay is more legit than physical evidence.
That's getting as
actually,
bad as the 17th letter of the alphabet. Disinformation is necessary.
Yeah. And then, like, when he said that, everyone just kind of looked at him like, dude, you're an absolute moron. And it was like the guy was just like, yeah, okay. On to
somebody, Scott, is saying that the former governor of Massachusetts, that's the only reason I picked that comment out, because I can say that place now. Never used to be able to say it until Joe Joseph taught me. Massachusetts, yes. Devil Patrick. Should be Devil Patrick. He's the newest Democrat to enter the race.
Yes.
Swamp creature. Is he a swamp monster?
Oh, yeah.
They're all swamp monsters, right? At varying degrees. Just deeper down or on the side of the swamp. They're all around it, though.
He was cozied up with Obama. And
like cozied up as in like Larry Sinclair cozied up in the back of the limo and things. That kind of cozy.
I don't know.
Brown chicken, brown cow. Eh?
You could tell he's trying to be an Obama 2.0. He's trying to have that.
I'll tell you one that really makes me laugh. That soy boy from Texas. Is it O'Rourke?
Oh, Beto.
He looks like the kind of man that would cry if you offered him a fight.
He does cry. He has cried.
Oh, is he one of these new age masculine dudes that cries on demand?
Oh, yes. Anytime that there was a shooting and, the tears started flowing.
Wasn't he laughing at one of those shooting as well, though, Scott? Wasn't he like laughing, crying? I remember a clip that almost showed him like laughing about it.
Yeah, it was weird. His whole demeanor. He's just a weird dude.
Isn't he? He's just a weird guy.
He's a weird guy. 1 minute he's crying, and then 1 minute he's trying to act all hard, and he's like, "Hell yeah, we're gonna take your AR-15s," and I'm like,
and I'm thinking, yeah, if you knew one end from an AR-15 from the other, I'd be hell of a surprised. Hell of a surprised.
I would love for Beto to be the first to volunteer to go and try and confiscate an AR-15.
Oh, can we live stream that? Probably not. Don't allow graphic images live, right? But we're going to come back after the break. We're going to shift gears. And hey, folks, don't think I'm having a go at the American political scene and ignoring the fact that ours over here is equally or even worse of a disaster. We've got our big election coming up soon. Ben Emlyn-Jones is going to be on the show tomorrow. He keeps his finger on the UK political pulse. We'll be getting into some of that with Ben tomorrow. We'll also be getting Ben's take on what we're going to be going into after the break. Ah, yes, the Prince and his very selective memory. Indeed, this is where Kev has a danger of being triggered, but I'll keep it calm tonight. I'll keep my blood levels and my blood pressure and the pulse low, Scotty. I'll manage to channel my inner smooth self for this one.
You'll have to fill me in on what's going on in British politics because I'm interested. And
they ignore everything that the people tell them. That's one thing I can tell you. We're still not getting our Brexit, Scott. Yeah, that's about it. That's about it. A lot of theatre like you get on your side of the pond. We've got our own bombastic maniac, Boris the Lunatic Johnson. Yes, indeed. We've got our own commie, Corbyn, as well. It's really exciting times over here. We'll be right back. Hour number 2 on the way on your favourite show, The Kev Baker Show, obviously. Yes, indeed. I'll need to go for a good bath with some bleach and have a good scrub after this. It's so unusual, Scotty, for me personally, to be stepping back into the arena. The whole the political thing, it interests me, right? It interests me. I do like going into it, but at the same time, I know it's so divisive. And I know that no matter how much energy and attention and focus we put into it, we've got absolutely no input or way of changing what happens in these political processes.
You know, Kev, I'll say it right here. I enjoy, this is my guilty pleasure. I love jumping into the political arena every now and then. Sometimes I jump in a little too deep and I get myself in trouble.
But that's okay because it's your thing. It's your thing.
It's my thing. And yes, I know people. Left-right paradigm. Yeah, but hey, it's something I like. I like breaking down politics. I like geopolitics. It's one of the things that got me into this kind of stuff, you know. I especially like the geopolitics stuff, the grand chessboard kind of breakdown of stuff.
Dude,
you know,
it was Jonesy that got me into this. So you know exactly how I started. You know, all the stuff that Jonesy was talking about, FEMA camps and Obama deceptions and left-right paradigms. And I mean, this is what got me onto YouTube to start with. And then I don't know, dude, it just wears you down, man. Wears you down.
Yeah, it does. But, you know, sometimes you have to address these things too.
Yeah,
because you can't act like these people aren't in control, because they are in control. You know, these are the people that are making decisions that affect our lives, right? And so to sit there and go, oh, left-right paradigm, it's all an illusion, it doesn't exist, it's all smoke and mirrors. No, because the laws that they pass, you could be thrown in jail for it. You know, these people are in control.
We often talk about the cabal and the dark forces, and from time to time you need to go in and name them and take a look at what they're doing, right?
Yeah, you have to. You have to. You have to at least check in on them and see what they're doing.
Scott, you're getting so much love from the chat room, dude. So much love. We've got Ben in there. We've got Robin, Scotty. We love you. Telling you, man. They're liking political Scott. I will need to dust off this geopolitical version of you more often, brother.
See, you've been repressing me, Kev.
I have. I've been stifling your powers. I'm like kryptonite.
You know when I get vocal on Facebook about certain topics, it gets quite a few likes. I enjoy the dopamine hit, I must say.
Yeah. Oh, I got a good dopamine hit the other day with my photo of Prince Andrew. It's the biggest dopamine rush I've had from Twitter so far. I think it's something like, wow, nearly 100 likes. Ooh, I was overdosing on the dopamine. I was feeling all giddy with it, Scott.
Yeah. Hey, look, I'll make a point when we come back, you know, about this whole political thing. You know,
Big time, dude. I'll come to you when we come back. We're just about to go back to the mothership right now. And remember, folks, please, please, please remember to visit tfrlive.com, the home of the Kev Baker Show. It's where all of this really got going, and I urge you all to please show it some support. We're going back to the network right now. Welcome back, everyone. Hour number 2 on today's slightly different Kev Baker Show. But if you've been a long-time listener and maybe somebody who came across me in the very, very early days, it's like a blast from the past. You might even be pinching yourself right now asking, is this some kind of encore show from way back in the day, Scott Lopez and Kev Baker breaking down the political nonsense, wading through the political quagmire, aka the swamp. See the things we do for you folks. But yes, it's important that from time to time we remind all of you out there that away from the woo, away from the comedy, away from the fun, we've still got our finger on the pulse. And when it's important to bring you news, we'll definitely do that. But with that said, we're not going to saturate you with this stuff over and over and over again. It's only today it was spurned on by the big kind of speculation that perhaps somebody had tried to take out Trump. And let's face it, going by the kind of attitude that he faces from the media, from those around him, from his opponents, it's not hard to stretch the imagination to think that maybe somebody would go after him. And that's really got us into a good conversation here, Scott. You know, we've been taking a look at the bigger picture. Maybe Trump being the head of a new faction on the block, trying to take power, using the Republican Party as his vehicle, per se. And I know you wanted to address the political stuff here before we get back into it and go even deeper down the elite rabbit hole and see what they get up to in their spare time.
Yeah, well, you know, I noticed someone in the chat said that, you know, I need my own solo show.
I would love you to have your own solo show.
I don't know. I like having somebody to bounce ideas off. But for those of you in the chat who don't know, me and Kenneth Webb had our own show on TFR for a while called The Quest for Truth. And that's what we did. If you wanted to hear politics, if that was your thing, if you wanted people to rip apart politics, geopolitics, the grand chessboard, all of that, that was what me and Ken Webb did every show, every time. And so, you know, that's where I'm pulling this from. And I also got to say, I mean, look, you know, people are like, oh, you know, left-right paradigm, you know, it's all theater, it's all fake. And, you know, like I said, no, these people are in power. You know, they're the ones controlling our lives. And you also have to look at who's posing the most danger at the moment. And I would say the people who identify themselves on being, well, actually, I'll identify them. I don't care. I'll put a label on them. The radical left. I think they're the most dangerous faction of people out there right now that want to stifle freedom of speech. They want to suppress everything, you know, the woke brigade, the SJWs, you know, Antifa, all of that group. They pose I would say a pretty legit danger to liberty, to people's liberty right now.
Well, they've already, right? I mean, people inspired by that have already gone after ICE centres and things like that, and there's talk of how it sounds to me almost like they're trying to mobilise some kind of paramilitary force, dude.
Yeah, I mean, they're crazy. They're unhinged, you know, and they're blinded by radical political ideology, right? And so that's something you can't ignore, you know, because those are the kind of people that end up becoming well, we see what happens when groups end up becoming radicalized with political ideology. It never leads to anything good, right? So, you know, we have to point this stuff out. And if that gets me labeled as you're an alt-righter, you know, you're a right wing.
Nobody puts Scotty in a box, folks. Nobody puts Scotty in a box. No labels.
Yeah, because right now I'm calling out the left, and I'm calling out, you know, these radical socialists. But you wind the clock back 10, 15 years, people were calling me a tree hugging hippie liberal. You what, you don't want to go to war in Iraq? Yeah, I was calling that out. I was you know, I was considered a radical leftist back during the Bush administration, right? So that's how it works. I was called a tree hugging hippie 1 minute. Now I'm a right wing extremist the next minute.
Can't
just
please
shows
all the
that,
people all the time, especially when you're dealing in politics, dude. Oh, it's the most programmed arena of all. It's where people will be triggered so easily, one way or the other, just with even a mere colour. Red might be enough to do it for the blue side and vice versa. It's crazy, dude. People are so triggered, aren't they? Especially now over in the States, man. It's like, wow. And again, it's not everyone, but that loony left, the closer you get to that really militant kind of whack job far left that you're talking about, it just seems a steady slope of increasing insanity and brainwashing. It truly does, and I hate to say that about the people involved, but you look at them, they're like screaming in the streets. They're like, what the hell is going on here, dude?
I just want gay couples to be able to defend their marijuana crops with AR-15s.
There you go. There you go, dude.
I mean,
keep everyone happy.
yeah. Look, I'm just for liberty. That's my political ideology. I just want people to be free. I want people to be able to live their lives without the government getting involved and telling them what to do. And as long
Forget
as
the
you're not
Rock.
hurting anybody,
Scott 2020. Get the Rock to run as your running mate, dude. You're in then.
as long as you're not violating anybody's rights and that you're not harming anybody, then there should be no issue. You should be able to do whatever you want. That's it.
That's the way I see it too. And I tell you one mob that definitely do as they please. Here we go. Here we go, Scott. Calm myself down now. The royal family. Yeah, they're back in the news again, folks. You know, that pesky prince and his wild partying when he was younger and things. Yeah, we've had a big weekend here in the UK and globally, I suppose, because we had Prince Andrew. Who advised him to do this is beyond me, but his PR guru resigned and fell on their own sword in the hours after this aired. But yeah, the palace over here in the UK thought, with all of the kind of attention centering around Prince Andrew just now because of his long-term association with Jeffrey Epstein, they thought it might be good to do one of these kind of damage limitation jobs. I imagine that's how it played out in their mind beforehand anyway, Scott. We'll get a nice, very, very easy interviewer in from the BBC. We'll get nice lighting in the palace. We'll obviously not have to worry about him sweating under the lights because apparently, according to Prince Andrew, he doesn't even sweat. He can't sweat. He's got an inability to sweat after he went to the Falklands War, which, of course, he seems to think is evidence enough to call into doubt Miss Guthrie's testimony about him being a very sweaty character. He also seems to have this very, very poor memory, Scott. You know, it's not even like he went on there to deny anything. He went on there to, I can't recollect, I can't recount, I don't recall, and in my mind, probably done himself even more damage than what he started the interview in, because the performance, and that's all you can call it, the performance that he put on, and at one point, I think Jeffrey Epstein's very evil, criminal, sick proclivity for what got him off came up in the conversation. And when Andrew was asked about that kind of thing with children, he didn't go as far as to condemn it. In fact, he kind of said something like, well, that's not behaviour becoming of one. Not very becoming of one, Scott.
Very interesting.
And like you say, you've seen one of these crusty old peers out there. And I think it's interesting what you said, because it kind of gives an insight, a window into how this lot think. And when I say this lot, they might say they're the same as us, like skin and bone humans and things like that. And I ain't going to go full reptilian, but they're different. There's something about this mob.
You might look up on Google, type in like aristocrat outrages, because that's what I remember in the headline. Because I don't know her name. Yeah, so you had one of these high society aristocrats up there on one of the morning shows, basically trying to defend Prince Andrew because, you know, they're trying to do damage control. And it was on the morning show that Piers Morgan does. Yeah, so you might maybe look that out. Yes, Lady Colin Campbell. It was absolutely disgusting what she said. So they're over there, you know, discussing the whole Prince Andrew thing, and she just kind of nonchalantly says, "Well, soliciting sex from someone underage, that's not pedophilia, that's prostitution. There's a difference." And Piers Morgan flew off the handle. I mean, I'll give props to Piers.
Will we take a listen? Will we take a listen?
We've got to. I don't know if that's going to get you.
No, it's okay. I'll cut it out afterwards if it does bring trouble on YouTube end. Here we go.
Play PokerStars.
Well, hang on. We've got one of these silly ads first, so I'll let you keep talking just now, Scott, while that plays out.
Yeah.
It won't take long.
So, yeah, it's absolutely disgusting what she said.
You all seem to have forgotten that Jeffrey Epstein, the offense with which he was charged and for which he was imprisoned was soliciting prostitution from minors. That is not the same thing as pedophilia. Soliciting
what do you call it?
Prostitution.
If you solicit a 14-year-old for prostitution, you're a paedophile.
It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't.
It does matter.
And
You're
they were
procuring
not
an underage
14
girl for sex.
in America.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
He wasn't a decent man.
That is nonsense.
No, it's not.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that just gives you an idea of how these people think, right? They're so out of touch with the average person, and that's like normal to them, that when somebody suggests that is wrong, they don't understand. Like they literally think that like you're the weirdo, right? That you're the one that's strange for. Well, that's not pedophilia.
It's crazy. And I have to state here, and I think I've done it during the last break to YouTube and things, or one of the other breaks, but when you're dealing with Prince Andrew, it's kind of hard to stomach, I know, because we know what Epstein was up to with the girls that he was, hate to use the word, employing, torturing, using. Unfortunately, with this crime, the one that seems to be the one that's got everyone talking, the famous photograph that Andrew says could be photoshopped. You couldn't make this up. But unfortunately, there is no actual law per se that he broke there, Scott. Because I know she's of the legal age of consent in the country at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And if Andrew isn't knowingly or doesn't know of the circumstances how she got there, i.e. like she's part of literally basically a victim, then, to be honest, you know, what do you charge him with? And this is something I see, and I've made this mistake myself as well. I've called him the P word. I've accused him of being, you know, one of those on a par with Epstein. But at the same time, when you look at Andrew's past, I've not seen anyone, or at least I have. I'm not saying there isn't claims out there by people who were underage at the time, but he's always liked good-looking women, film stars, celebrities. And in this case, unfortunately, and people, you can hate me all you like, but it's just true. It's a fact that she was 17 at the time, they say, and that's not illegal over here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's a case of one of these things to where people know, you know what I mean? People know, but you don't have the hard evidence to convict, right? But everyone in their gut knows what was really happening. And we know that this was happening even before she was 17. Right.
Yep.
And so, but all they have to go on is, well, you know, when she was of legal age, you know, barely legal, and, you know, the pictures they wouldn't hold up in court. So
I don't care what anyone says. Two guys that know each other, and they knew each other well. They were hanging out. They were partying together. Two guys know each other well, talking privately. They knew exactly what each other were into. And even if Andrew wasn't into the same as Epstein, you can't tell me he didn't know exactly what was going on there. You can't tell me they didn't have a clue what was going on with Epstein and all these young kids and girls around him, Scott, you know?
Exactly. So, I mean, like I said, it's just a thing to where people know what they were doing, and people know that they've done shady crap, and that they're absolute scumbags, and that they deserve to be locked up.
And this stuff with the royals will go nowhere. It'll go nowhere, Scott. We know it'll go nowhere. Look at ABC News. Absolutely shelved their report, fired the person. We've seen what's happening over here in the UK now. That BBC interview, that'll be the end of it. That'll be it done. He's done that. He denied it. He didn't remember it. And yet the whole time, Scott, the focus should be on Ghislaine Maxwell, his handler, the one that was also named as committing the same crimes as him in the first place, like the actual literal underage crimes that Jeffrey Epstein was committing. All the people that are connected to that underage side of things, but the whole world's focusing on pizza and princes.
Yep. And, you know, people on the chat saying, you know, hey, she claimed that he, you know, did something really bad to her. And maybe he did.
That's still for a court to decide.
Yeah, you have to be able to prove it. I mean, I'm sorry. She can make that claim, and by all accounts, I mean, I believe her, right? But it has to be proven, because a lot of the same people that are saying, you know, hey, she claimed that he did this, you know, are the same people that are saying, well, you know, Kavanaugh didn't.
Hearsay is better than evidence and things, Scott, right? You know,
it is, unfortunately, it's hearsay. And, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, I don't want to make people in the chat mad, but that's just the fact, right? You know, a lot of the people that were defending Kavanaugh saying, oh, she's just making an accusation, she needs to prove it, right? You can't turn around and kind of hold a double, you know, be a
especially when it's like this. You can't start going on. Yeah, can't start witch hunts. I know it's horrible.
Yeah,
I'm with you, Scott. I'm with you all the way on this, man.
It's really hard. It's very tempting, because we know the history of the royals, and we deep down we know what they do. But unless you have some actual hard evidence that will hold up in court, that's a slam dunk case that will put them away, unfortunately, all you're doing is making accusations, and you're speculating. It's hard. It's really hard. And, you know, I'm very tempted a lot of times to just go there and, you know, go that route. But you have to show some restraint, as hard as it is. You do have to show some restraint, and you know that's what we talk about with like a lot of these YouTube channels, right? That use this topic for clickbait because they make wild accusations.
The wilder the accusation, the more clicks it garnishes, dude.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because they're using this very, very serious topic in order to, they're exploiting it. You know, they're exploiting this topic. And I'm honestly, you know, very surprised that some of these Hollywood actors haven't sued some of these YouTube channels for defamation and slander, right? Especially like, you know, you saw a lot of the accusations coming out like about Tom Hanks. You know?
Yep.
I mean, straight up.
No, I'm laughing because I remember. Yeah. Because he had posted a picture of a glove out in the Arizona desert on his Instagram. This was proof that he had a hand in the suicide of Isaac Cappy.
Well, and then even before that, you know, saying that he did really bad things to young children, right? But there was no proof of that. You can't just go out and make those accusations against people. And yes, Hollywood is full of scumbags, and that probably does occur in Hollywood.
Oh, you better believe it.
Yeah. And we're not saying it doesn't, but you can't go out there and just slap those accusations and call somebody that without being able to prove it, you know, without having concrete evidence that you can prove in a court of law that is guaranteed to put them away. You just can't do that.
I'm with you on the same page 110%, Scott. Everything you've said, from the uncomfortable truth that, you know, we would love to do something about the royals. Of course, we know, again, through hearsay, but historically we know what these people are like. We know what they're up to. We know what they were into. We heard one of these peers there a moment ago. I didn't have it on the screen at the time, but I think that's worth listening to again just to make it sink into people. I really do. Because this is the attitude. They honestly think that what they get up to is normal, and to the point where we're the weirdos when Piers Morgan, points out the obvious. See, I got mixed up with my peers there. Being in the UK, it's a peerage everywhere, right?
You all seem to have forgotten that Jeffrey Epstein, the offense with which he was charged and for which he was imprisoned was soliciting prostitution from minors. That is not the same thing as pedophilia. Soliciting
what do you call
prostitution. Prostitution.
If you solicited a 14-year-old for prostitution, you're a paedophile.
It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't.
It does matter.
And
You're
they were
procuring
not
an underage
14
girl for sex.
in America.
I'm sorry.
He wasn't addicted, man.
Look at that entity in the middle of the sofa there. Oh, wow, man. Wow. Just wow.
Yeah, that blew my mind when I saw that. I was like, wow. And you know, these aristocrats, these higher ups, these upper echelon people in, you know, British society or whatever, that rub shoulders with the royals. Because I'm
to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know what we were looking at there, Scott. That was almost like a moth ma'am.
Yeah, I don't know who she is. I really don't.
I don't even know if we can go with that pronoun, to be honest with you. I think we'd have to check what pronouns it's using today.
But these people are raised to think that that's normal. Like, I'm sure she's been brainwashed since she was a child, right? Being raised in this aristocratic...
Well, you know what, Scott? Let's give the last word to the man, will we?
During these times that he was a guest at Windsor Castle at Sandringham, the shooting weekend, we now know that he was and had been procuring young girls for sex trafficking.
We now know that. At the time, there was no indication to me or anybody else that that was what he was doing. And certainly when I saw him either in the United States, when I saw him in the United States, or when I was staying in his houses in the United States, there was no indication, absolutely no indication.
You were with him that often, you can't even remember what time you were talking about, Andrew. Been eating too much pizzas at Pizza Express, pal. We'll be back after the break. Don't go anywhere. Yeah, exactly, Scotty. Wowzers. Just wowzers, man. And as for that aristocrat, that's what you want to call it. It doesn't make the blood boil too much, my friend. Not too much, no. That's how these people look at it. And people laugh at me and Scott and other people who say there's an agenda to normalize this kind of craziness and evil. It's because it's normal to them. They want us to be as sick and as twisted and as broken as they are. And we must never, ever even begin to slip down that slope. But we can see how they're trying to drag us there right now. Now you see why they're confusing the children purposely when they're younger. Now you see why they're trying to sexualize them at younger and younger ages. And I know the algorithm has already flagged this up about 50 bajillion times, but the truth is what matters here. And that is the truth of the matter, Scott, that this is almost like so commonplace. It's like normal. It's a pastime. It's a sport for them, man.
Yeah, I mean, they really don't see anything wrong with it. So it's almost like they're stunned when somebody points out that, hey, you're doing something wrong. And they're like, what? I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yeah, you're the weirdos, right?
What are you talking about? This is just a normal. This is what we always do. You know, like I said, that aristocrat, I'm sure she was raised and brainwashed and who knows, probably abused herself.
See, that's the thing. At what point do you stop feeling sorry for the fact that they've probably all been victims, but they've gone on to repeat the cycle, right?
That's what happens, right? Because victims usually go on to continue the cycle of abuse, right? And so when you have generations and generations of that happening, especially within the royal family, I mean, we all know that the royals have engaged in incest.
That's why they needed to get Charles married to Diana. It was literally an injection of more royal, pure DNA because theirs was that screwed up with inbreeding.
And we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of years of engaging in incest. Right?
Everard's the man for that. Everard's the boy that can rattle all that off, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure they weren't waiting for these children to be of age of consent or the you know, before they were doing any of this stuff. So I mean, yeah.
You could argue.
For them,
you could argue they were doing stuff or involving William in the rituals even pre-birth, considering they had Diana have a cesarean on the morning of the summer solstice. You know?
Yeah. See, there you go. And like I said, so they were born into this and they were raised just thinking this is normal. To them, it's normal. That's the crazy thing. That's what makes it so insane. That they actually think that this is normal.
It's hard to wrap your head around, isn't it? It's really hard to wrap your head around.
It is. Yeah.
Here we go, dude. Here we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I honestly cannot believe I'm saying this. Final segment of today's Kev Baker Show. My good friend, Scotty Lopez. And I've cut him off the leash tonight. He's uncut. He's uncensored. Yes, I've stopped stifling his political weird. I'm only joking, but Scott, you've been on fire tonight, man. And what's even better is, this is why I wanted to have a conversation with you, because we pretty much look at the world in the same way. You might come from America, I might come from over here, but like you were saying earlier on, you just want the world, your country, to be a better place. I just want that over here as well. And we'll call out things when it needs calling out. And this tonight, all of it, you know, we needed to have that discussion about Trump. We've not spoke about this stuff on here for ages. And whether we're close to the truth or not with the poisoning, time will tell. We'll come back to it if there's new info. But this other story here, this whole Prince Andrew and Epstein stuff and everything else, you know, wow. What an opportunity we've had to not only get a glimpse into the world of what happens here, but unfortunately, predictably, I suspect that the opportunity that was afforded to us, i.e. the information that Epstein probably had kept somewhere, the people that could have been rounded up on the back of this, the real hardened criminals at the centre of this, whether Andrew was or not, the evidence could have been collected to put together several hundred cases, I imagine. But like we all predicted at the time, even after his falling off the top bunk in the cell over there in America, it just seems like we're all talking now about Andrew, but in reality, how closer are we to really busting open one of the most powerful sexual predator rings that's been running? Arguably, Scott, we could go back to the time of the Finders that we covered and beyond some, because this is how it works.
You know, this has been going on for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years.
Forever. Yep.
Forever. This has been going on. The elite, the global controllers, the people in positions of power, the ones who have the occulted knowledge, whatever you want to call them, you know, the Illuminati or whatever. This is what they do. This is what they've been doing. You know, they've engaged in child sacrifice all the way back to the Babylonian times.
We were showing Moloch yesterday in the Colosseum. That was
Moloch.
Yep.
All of that stuff. This has been going on forever, and it's just evolved and morphed, and the window dressing has changed, and different players have come and gone, and different people have been in power and whatnot. But the playbook stays the same, and we're just in the 21st century now, and they're just using 21st century tactics and, you know, utilizing, you know, the tools that they have at their disposal now, but to do the same stuff. And none of this has changed. And, you know, unfortunately, it's going to continue. They're very good about protecting their own, and they're very good about keeping a lot of this under wraps. And, you know, I think
they're able to do that because of the dirt that's collected at the houses and parties of people like Jeffrey Epstein.
Yep.
It's all about power. It's all about blackmail. And like Scotty said, this is how the game's played. As sick and as evil and as hard for me to say that as it is.
And before we move on, I will just end it with the one good thing about being in the 21st century now is that we have the internet. We can communicate with each other, at least for now, you know, until they decide to clamp down. And that, you know, we have this global awakening taking place. And I think, you know, if they're not going to find, you know, if justice isn't going to be served because they're able to protect their own, and they have people within positions to, you know, let them off the hook and all of that stuff, I think the next best thing we have to do is expose them like this. Let's talk about these subjects. Destroy them in the court of public opinion, right? Let them know that the average person knows what they're doing and that they absolutely despise them. You know, and I think that's really, I mean, all we can do. And they probably know that we despise them, and they probably even feed off of that. They enjoy that we don't, you know, that they despise us as much as we despise them. You know, it's all a game to them. But still, we just have to expose them. And, you know, it doesn't mean making wild accusations, but if you're going to speculate, just state that you're speculating. You know, like we do. We go, look, all we can do is speculate.
All we can do, dude.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'll leave it at that.
No, and I'll that. Yep. I think that kind of put the icing on that particular cake. And I'll be back with Ben Emlyn-Jones tomorrow. I'll let him say his piece on all of this as well. He's been researching this deep since it's been really kicking off. And Ben, like ourselves, not a big fan of the royal family, you know. No.
And there's no reason to take it beyond, right? I mean, there's enough there that we can work with. There's no reason to go any further and take it into ridiculous realms. There really isn't.
Exactly. In fact, in my own personal opinion, that does more harm to the subject than good. In fact, it tarnishes a lot of the great work that some people out there really are doing to literally have a real world effect in saving people that are victims to the hands of these people. But when you have so many desperate for clicks and attention and drama and the more sensational stories out there, for me, it just makes a mockery of all of it. And anyone new coming to the subject sitting thinking, going, what? This is absolutely crazy. Tom Hanks? What the hell? Steven Spielberg? What the heck? Now, like myself and Scott admitted, we're not doing some cover job for Hollywood here. We're absolutely convinced that there's this kind of shady stuff going on behind the scenes, but it's proving it. It's proving it, folks. And if anyone out there on YouTube, since we're a YouTube channel here too, if anyone says to you that they can help save the kids if you just send them enough money, run a mile. Run a mile, because they're even worse than the mainstream media. They've been totally using your emotions, because this is an emotional thing. Who doesn't get angry about this kind of thing? And for somebody out there that's offering to, you know, put an end to this and to help, just be careful, folks. That's all I'm saying. On here on this channel, you support the channel. What you see is what you get. No major claims of going saving the world or anyone that needs saving for that matter. We'll just keep doing what we do. We'll stick to what we can prove. And we'll tell you when we're speculating. And, of course, from time to time, we're going to be wrong. But I think myself and Scott are both man enough to come back here to the plate and admit when we are wrong. And if we get it wrong, it's not because we meant to or because we intentionally wanted to mislead anyone. It's because we're just like all of you out there. We're trying to navigate all of these stories. We're trying to make sense of this. Nothing makes us special. You don't pick up a microphone and suddenly become an expert on all of these things. Be nice to think that, and some would definitely have you believe it, but we don't roll like that. Not at all, Scott. No. So what we do roll, though, is into the woo. And it wouldn't be a Kev Baker show, and I couldn't leave people to go away after this show. I can't have them tuning into Lucky and Dr. Brooks Agnew after us putting them in what must be probably a negative vibe. So we're going to lift that energy. We're going to raise it up. We're going to get into some of the stuff that we've been talking about recently, Scott, with Woo. Didn't we have a little conversation? And I think Carol in YouTube chat at the weekend brought up how there's only so many faces out there. There's only so many combinations of DNA. Got us talking about doppelgangers, and I had Armand on the stream yesterday sharing his story, and he made me think big time, and I thank you for that, Armand. I love it when somebody says something that makes you really think. And there was a photograph came up yesterday, and it's a photograph of Greta Thunberg, our little climate activist. No attack on her. I'm just pointing out to people who I'm talking about. We all know Greta, right? And there's this photograph from about 100 years ago that certainly seems to show Greta back in the day, back then. Some would say almost like some kind of time-traveling doppelganger, Scotty. Some reincarnation, whatever way you want to think about it. But it's the doppelgangers that I want to come to. Because we've spoke about this quite a lot recently, and what our man said to me was, Kev, when we're looking now at the odd occasion, Greta Thunberg, for example, when you see somebody in the public eye, somebody that's known, and then all of a sudden there's photographs appear from the past, which appear to show, at the very least, somebody who bears a striking resemblance to the person in question. We've seen it with, I think Scott brought up Keanu Reeves over the weekend. We've seen it with Nicolas Cage. That's the one that sticks in my mind. And there's pictures of individuals throughout the past that look like dead ringers, doppelgangers for these people. And that's cool when it happens, and it certainly makes you think, right? Well, this is where our man took it in a totally different direction and totally blew my mind. Because he says, Kev, think about 100 years from now. Think of people looking at photographs of the time we're in right here today. And then think of the amount of photographs, selfies, pictures on social media, and compare them, do the math, to the amount of photographs that exist of people from the past. It's actually quite startling, Scott, when you start to think about that. With so many billions of people participating in social media and online, so many images, multiple images of individuals on there, the mind boggles as to how many photographs we're talking about. But then think about those people in 100 years. Those people in 100 years may start seeing doppelgangers here, there, everywhere. There I was in the 70s. There I was in the 2010s. There I was in 2040s, 2050s. Whoa, what's going on here? What's going on? Would that indicate a simulation, Scott? There's only so much code that you can make people out of, right? And if you play the game long enough and you're able to remember with photographs we can, you know, then perhaps this could be another simulation indication.
Ah, nice little rhyme there. A simulation indication.
I like that.
You ever play those games where you have like the character creator and you get to like create all your facial features and all that stuff? And usually when I play those type of games, I just hit random. So it just kind of randomizes my character's face, because I don't like to spend all of the time sitting there trying to customize my guy or
Same
whatever.
Here.
You know?
And there's no way they don't offer a radio face option that fits my guy, you know?
Yeah, I just keep mashing random until I get a face that looks somewhat cool, you know, or whatever, you know. But, you know, mathematically, we want to bring in some math here. You keep mashing that randomize button enough times, that face you're gonna get the exact same face that comes up pretty often, right? Actually, if you look in the grand scheme of things, because you're based off a certain preset kind of what is it?
Well, you think about it, Scott, right? You think about it. You're dealing with a computer there, binary, and like I say, eventually, random. It's going to eventually churn out something that's churned out before. We go to the human code, and we've got not binary, not trinary, but quadrinary code, right? Because we've got those 4 amino acids, those nucleotides, the A, the C, the T, the G, otherwise known as DNA. And even with all of the junk DNA taken into the equation here, the stuff they don't understand, you start combining that over and over and over and over again. And, you know, every say, how long? Generations, you've got billions of people and things like that, Scott. Over time, I don't care if it's quadrinary code or not, you're going to get repeating code.
Yes, exactly. And what I was trying to think of here is that there's certain parameters.
Yeah.
Right. There's certain parameters. Like, so in the game where you create the character, there's only certain parameters to, you know, how many ways you can change the eyes, because there has to be some boundaries. There has to be a cutoff limit to, unless they code into the game that you could space the eyes apart indefinitely, then your character would look absolutely insane,
like a fish,
right? Because
a fish man, like a merman.
Yeah, you could just like stretch the eyes out off the screen, So they have to set parameters of at least a basic shape of the head, right? Well, what is our DNA? Our human DNA. There's certain parameters of us being born as a human. Obviously there are some glitches in the code. There are some defects.
Yep.
There are people who are born, with defects and stuff like that. But generally, everyone is pretty much, 2 legs, 2 arms.
Nose goes usually in the right place. Eyes usually not on the side of the... I get you, Scott. I'm with you all the way. I tell you, dude, this is why I'm loving it when we hook up, man. I hope the audience appreciate this. This is like another voice. I can sit here, no hands. Look, I'm not working. I'm like a puppet. It's like listening to myself with an American accent. This is cool.
So yes, we are coded with certain parameters. Humans have certain parameters, and after billions and billions of people being born, you're gonna get repeats. You're gonna get repeats in the code, and I think that's what the doppelgangers are, right? You just get a repeat in, that genetic code, where one person ends up looking like another. It's very interesting because we talk about twins, right? Like identical twins born in the womb. But who's to say you can't have a twin out there that wasn't in the womb with you? That you have a copy of yourself that just happened to be, random roll of the dice. It's like mashing that random character generator, and it just happens to land on the same numbers. It happens to land on the same parameters. I think that's possible. I think you could have an identical twin out there that isn't technically your biological twin, born in the womb with you, but just maybe random throw of the dice somewhere in the world, their genetic code just happened to be the same as yours, and that, they're your doppelganger.
With you all the way. Big time. Literal doppelganger. So talking of doppelgangers, and one of our good friends, Harriet, over at YouTube, Harriet was talking there about deep fakes and perhaps the technology to allow us to jump between bodies, and the deep fake was alluding to. Now, I know there's a lot of talk about deepfake out there. I don't have it on my PC anymore, actually. I was just thinking about that. But I downloaded a deepfake, kind of the neural net. The bog standard one. You've got Nicolas Cage, you've got Shia LaBeouf. That one there, Scott, that's what I trained it on. But I don't know if that... It might. I mean, I don't know if that connects at all into body transfer technology. But I tell you what, if they have mastered the way to digitize consciousness... Let's just say I know nobody can define consciousness, but say they can do it, Scott. It wouldn't put it past them to start jumping around. It'd be like some sci-fi show. 1 minute Kissinger's in his own body, the next minute he's in like a healthy 21-year-old, and then before you know it, you're looking for a really sweet young child, and it's still Kissinger inside though. Don't make the mistake of falling for the sweet young child. That's Kissinger's consciousness, dude.
Remember when we were talking about the search for Planet 9, and that now they have the ability to run this database of images from the telescope through an artificial intelligence, through machine learning, and that it might be able to find planets in ways that we probably don't even understand, right? Because we're talking about it. AI doing it, right? And so what do you think would happen if we do manage to map out the brain, right? But it would be impossible for humans to sit there and, how do you say, figure it all out, like understand the mapping of the brain. But you feed that data into an AI.
And you feed it literally into the virtual brain, Scott. You have like a brain in VR. Map all those bits out. You've got it sitting there.
The AI figures out, okay, I worked all of this out. I worked all of the data. I found all of the nuances. I figured all of that out. This is how you transfer that over. You know,
Scott, it's funny you say this because I think all of our technological advances, whether we've known it or not, have been to take us towards creating an AI. And I know people are going to hate me saying this, but it is going to be the AI that takes us to the next level. Because like you were talking parameters on how faces can look and how genomes can turn out and things. As good as your desktop computer is, it's got a limit. You can overclock it as much as you like, but it's still, you know, you reach that ceiling, it ain't going to be able to do quantum calculations, for example. And our brains too are like that. Our brains are very much like that. And maybe we get to a limit, Scott. And as clever as we are, and as great as we are, to the point where we can create a super intelligent being that's going to be far more intelligent than us. That's our whack, but it doesn't mean it's the end of us. It means we have to somehow use that and let it elevate us up to there.
Yes.
People hate me for that, dude. I'm scared to look at the chat room. They're going to call me Elon Musk, and
oh, it's all right. You're going to get a lot. You're going to get a lot of. You'll get hate for it, kid. But don't worry about it, because I'm with you on this too. Look, it's a tool.
We have a Brian coming in, by the way. Brian's quick today. He likes this. You triggered Brian, Lance. You got him quick.
The gay mafia is real.
Yes, indeed. Mr. Charlie Robinson hanging out in our YouTube chat room. Yes, Charlie, you'll have been proud of me tonight, my friend. I've put the waders back on. I have gone back in, standing toe-to-toe with the political powerhouses and the paedophile masters. Yes, indeed, haven't we, Scott?
Yes. But, you know, to your point, though, I do think it is very, very important to try and point out the positive ways this could be utilized.
Yep.
Because if we just focus on the negative, then we're going to manifest that. If all you talk about is the negative ways technology can be used and is going to be used, you're essentially throwing it out there for people to use it in that way. So why don't we talk about the positive aspects of it and the positive ways that it could be used? And I think we need to try and do our best to utilize, because there's no way we're going to stop it. It's going to be here. No matter how much we sit here and bitch and moan about how horrible AI is and that our AI overlords are going to come and enslave humanity or whatever, no matter how much we sit there and moan about that, it's going to be here. AI is, it's going to be here. So we might as well try and do the best we can to utilize it in a positive way.
Yep.
And so I think we need to focus on that. And I think we need to try and quell people's fear of it. Doesn't mean that there aren't negative aspects to it. Just simply means that we need to learn, we need to try and figure out the best way going forward with this and how we're going to utilize it. And, you know, before we go, I actually did a broadcast with Kriston Harris, and we were talking to the presidential candidate of the Transhumanist Party, Ben Zion. And, you know, we know that transhumanism has a lot of negative connotations to it. But if you actually sit there and talk to Ben Zion, I mean, he's pretty much on the same page as us. We need to figure out how we're going to be utilizing this stuff in the future. So I think it'd be very interesting, maybe sometime in the future. I was thinking about inviting Ben Zion on.
Let's do it.
He's very open to that.
Let's do it, dude. Yeah. I'm definitely. Because like Scott says, whether we like it or not, and somebody in the chat room says it's inevitable. And it is. I'll tell you what else is inevitable. Dr. Brooks Agnew and Lucky coming up right after today's show, folks. We're out of time. Charlie Robinson kicking in the chat room. He's going to be in the green room, I think, for about a week. Because I think Charlie's back next week, and I can't wait to get into all of this stuff with the big man. He's the man the algorithm loves to hate, as are me and Scott tonight. So for another night, wherever you are, make it TFR. Didn't touch that dial, and stay tuned for Quantum Connections. Coming up after the break. Don't go anywhere. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen and guests of the Kev Baker Show that are just chilling out in the chat room. Yes, Lance, may I thank you as well, sir, for the super chat that came in. Absolutely fantastic and right on point with your comment, and lots of other mafias to boot as well. I had a good time tonight, Scott. We shifted it up. I knew I could bait you back into it if I told you Kev's going back to the arena. I am one more time putting on the clothes of the gladiator, and we're going back in there, Scott.
See, when you tell me we're going to strap up and we're going to go into the arena, the neurons start firing in my brain, and then with a little bit of sleep deprivation added on top of it.
This isn't the first time I've had the BBC trying to rubbish some of the stories that we talk about. Remember, they done the very soft lighting and cozy fireside chat with the Hampstead dad. Because that's exactly the flavour I got when I was watching Prince Andrew. And I thought, well, I tell you what, if the establishment are going to these lengths to cover things up, it's time for me to get the light back out. It's time to get back to what made the channel a 92,000 sub-channel in the first place. Even if I don't like talking about it, people like hearing me and Scott talking about it. So from time to time, Scott, just remind me, hey, Baker, waders on, we're going in.
Yes, sometimes, Kev, I feel like I'm like a pressure cooker ready to. Well, maybe I shouldn't.
No, I definitely can't say pressure cooker. There's the algorithm again, folks. You know, who knew between traffic cones and pressure cookers? What a weird world we live in today, yeah.
Yes, sometimes let's just say there's a lot of pent-up pressure that I need to unleash every once in a while. So I think it is. We have to get into these topics sometimes.
And I think for a lot of the new KBS listeners, in particular on YouTube, this might have been the first time you really kind of, whoa, Kevin Scotty going into this kind of stuff. And like I say, back in the day, you go through my archives over on TFR, maybe one show a month at the start would touch on the woo. And then Freaky Friday came along and things got even weirder with Trump coming into the mix.
That was the whole point of Freaky Friday, because this was what we talked about
all week, so we could switch off and get into Bigfoot and something cool. Remember?
Yeah, and then Freaky Friday was the diversion, or was like the switch up, the 180 from the rest of the stuff we did during the week, where we were talking about politics.
And then Hangar 18 was the show where we would say that all of the hard work that we've put in all week, all of the new subscribers and listeners that we've managed to garnish over the past 6 days, we're going to lose on this one stream.
Hangar 18 was the show that separated the wheat from the chaff. Only the most hardcore individuals could survive.
Dude, it's worse than Jones. At least you can still find Jones on the internet. I tell you, I challenge anyone, go out there and find a Hangar 18. I tell you, it's... that's hard going.
No way we could ever. Hangar 18 is definitely a NSFYT. See, I got it, Kev.
You did.
There's no way it would ever fly on YouTube. That would probably have to be like a BitChute thing, like maybe a one-off.
We need. Well,
I don't know.
Well, on that note, before we wrap up for today. And I'll need your help behind the scenes on this one for the weekend, Scott. I'm obviously going to be simulcasting as the week goes on. I really enjoy the simulcast now. I've tried doing like just the radio part of things It was a couple of weeks ago, and it was so weird, Scott. Do you know what I had to do after the first break? And don't laugh at me, people, right? Don't laugh. I had to put Streamlabs on because I was lost, Scott. It felt so weird. I'm like, I'm so used to doing the Streamlabs thing now. It felt better just having it on in the corner. And even though I had my stories up, like you see my screen here, I don't know. It's weird, dude. I'm not used to the streaming now. It feels weird when
it's become so second nature that it feels weird.
Yeah, it feels like there's something missing. I don't feel myself. It's like, whoa, what's going on here, man? I know.
I do the same thing sometimes with certain things where you fire something up and you're like, I'm not even utilizing that, but it just feels comfortable that it's running.
Yeah.
You know,
the way the brain works, and they think they can mimic the brain. They think they can get all of these quirks and things into like a digital brain. Good luck with that, Elon. I tell you, I'll let you practice on my brain. If you can get half the voices from my brain into my digital one, hey, cool, dude, cool. Yes, the voices, Scott, the voices. You must take heed of the voices. But yeah, I'm trying to think. Tomorrow on the Safe Space, I'll go into the Doppelganger story that we got well deep into the conversation there. And tomorrow night, first hour, I'll be pretty much getting Ben Emlyn-Jones' take on what's going on with Andrew. Similar stuff to this. In hour 2, though, myself and Ben will be going into the weird, the wonderful, the woo. So a lot to look forward to there. I'm sure I had something to say. I think I may have forgotten it.
I have a little announcement.
Go for it, man. Go for it.
Mr. Christopher Everard. I proposed something to him. Now, this was my idea. Not his, but he's fully on board. Because I honestly believe the man, the myth, the legend himself, he needs more exposure. He needs people to see his work. You know what I mean? And I proposed to him that we start a Christopher Everard BitChute channel, and that we start uploading some of his documentaries and some of his work to BitChute.
It's a good idea, because his documentaries tend to get censored on here. And you reminded me what I was going to say. You reminded me. At the weekend, I've figured out the way now on Streamlabs and on YouTube to get a key that will enable us to multi-stream again, Scott. So we'll be able to go to Periscope. We'll be able to go to DLive. And I know some people don't like DLive, but we'll also be able to go to Mixer as well, because I'm getting myself a Mixer account on there. So we're going to be going out on even more platforms by the weekend, folks. And that's why I need Scott there, because I know Scott used to keeping an eye on DLive and things like that. And that way I'm not going to 10 different websites to see if we're going out live before I even start talking to people, if you know what I mean. So yeah, again, we're up in the game, Scott. We're trying to do new stuff. We've got the Discord server. If you want to join that, it's KBS Discord at protonmail.com. And tonight I really have genuinely enjoyed getting into this. Part of me today wondered, was this the road to go down? I sometimes have to try and gauge the audience. But you know what? When it comes to topics like this, it's going to be uncomfortable for some people, but the hard truths often are. And I think at least if it's only just to show people that we're not totally naive to what's really going on in some of the bigger stories in the world, even if it only serves that purpose. I hope you've seen a different side to the show tonight. I hope you also appreciate that myself and Scott, our waters do run a whole lot deeper than just the woo. And from time to time, we will definitely continue to do these more analytical shows, my friend.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we are not going to sit here and feed you bullshit.
Nope.
That's we're just info junkies. We look at the information provided to us, and if we're, if we're going to speculate on something, we pretty clearly state that it's just our speculation, our thoughts on it, and that's that. We don't make outrageous claims, and sit there and claim that it's the truth. That there's 100% confirmation.
Oh, yes. And if I ever start hitting out with secret insiders from the EU or anything, just slap me about the face with a fish, Scott. Now, I see Brent Thomas is in the chat room. And Brent, I enjoyed hanging out over there last night for his bedtime stories. I hope Brent will tell everyone in the chat room what time that will be starting on, because I really enjoy that. And I want to see, we've got 190 in here right now. And I get it, some of the UK audience, it's going to be getting a little bit late. But if you are over in the US, do me and Scott a solid. Check out Brent Thomas. We didn't manage to give you your fill of the paranormal today, but I can promise you that man will. Oh, absolutely. And then I was laughing when you were speaking there, Scott, right? Because my mum had messaged me. She realised I'd done the Kevism, as I call it. Start talking about something and I forget where I'm going. So she tried to keep me on path, but then because there's the delay of YouTube and us doing this here live, it was like, by the time she told me it was about BitTube, I'm thinking, what the hell? Wait, what's BitTube all about? And then I got it. I'm like, let's try to keep me right.
It's all good. Good job, Pearl. Good job.
Yes,
Pearl.
good job.
She knows her boy.
She's got it dialed in. Nobody knows their son better than the mother, right? So on that note, folks, I'm going to get out of here. Myself and Scott are going to kick back. We're going to, I don't know what we're going to do, but I don't know what you're going to do either. I know one place I probably will be, and that's at Brent's channel later on for the Paranormal Portal. Please head over there. 190 in here just now, 185. At least 100 of you. Come on. Let's do it. Make the effort. I'll see you all there. How's that? I'll meet you in Brent's chat room. Can't ask any fairer than that, and we'll get into all the woo that Brent's got for us tonight. So, Scotty boy, it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Yes, and I shall see you on Thursday.
Yes, we will. We will. The safe space. Oh, wow. Yes, Thursday will be a good one. We'll line up some craziness, right? So until next time, folks, thank you so much for taking the time out to listen to myself and Scott. Hope we gave you something to think about out there, because in the end of the day, that's all we can hope for. And like I say, I'll be back tomorrow, safe space, and Ben Emlyn-Jones, all the way from sunny Wales on the show tomorrow night for all of your pleasure. And you know, when Ben Emlyn-Jones isn't on the show, there's always a plethora of woo. Catch you all later, folks.